Thursday. I hope you're all doing well. I am going to very quickly jump into my profile and make sure that I'm actually live. But today we're going to be talking about the five psychological buying triggers that you want to incorporate into both your content and your sales, your offers, so that you can get the instant sales every time. So if you're with me live, say hello. I'm going to just double check that okay. I'm actually live. I am perfect. Okay, let me do this real quick because I know that being live is important. All right, so I'm live, and if you're with me live, say hello. I am using like a third party streamer, so I cannot see you if you're here. So just say hello, and I will respond. So let's talk a little bit about why this is even important, right? Like, why do we care? Why do we feel the need to understand these psychological triggers? Here's the case. The online space is noisy. There's a lot going on, and it gives you the upper hand because ultimately, for most of us, I'm pretty sure, marketing isn't something that you're born knowing, right? A lot of you got into this business because you love what you do. You have a genius, a specific skill set or experience that you want to share with the world. You want to support people. You want to impact the world. You want to make a difference. But marketing may not be that skill set, and so that is the area that obviously a lot of coaches and service-based providers struggle with, is how do I communicate, articulate effectively to my audience? How do I create content that's resonating and moving the ball forward and actually creating that desire in my audience for them to actually take the next step, which is to purchase your offer, right? Invest in your programs. And so this is really important because it's something we're not taught. And so having the understanding, just the basic foundational understanding of what these psychological triggers are, will really help you have the upper hand when it comes to creating content, when it comes to the way you structure and create your offers, right? And we want to be able to do that accordingly, because we need to have a really strong understanding of our audience. The major companies do this, right? Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Apple, Amazon, Tesla, your big multi-million and billion-dollar companies. What keeps them successful is they understand their audience and they know how to market to their audience in the way that their audience will take the next steps, right? To purchase, to invest. And so we have to be able to understand that. Most of you are solopreneurs. Until you have the revenue to hire maybe a marketer or something in your business, you are the marketer, right? You are the coach. You are the expert. You are the service-based provider. You're also your CEO. You're also the chief financial officer. You're also the marketer in your business. And so you have to understand what makes people tick and what makes them buy. You also have to understand this because ultimately, right, at the end of the day, when you go into other programs or whatever it may be, when you're being told, oh, use this strategy or that strategy, why I find people struggle, one of the reasons, is because they don't really have a deep underlining understanding of why. They just do it, right? You're like, oh, your coach tells you, do a webinar or do this. And then they attempt to do it and it doesn't really fall. They don't get the ROI they're expecting. The reason, because there's not a deep knowledge understanding of your audience and their buying habits, but there's also not understanding of why do we do these strategies. Like, what is the core behind it? What is the reasoning behind it? I'm a why child, so I always asked why. Like, I've always been curious. Like, I'm a science major. I graduated with health science and biology and a minor in psychology, so I've always been really curious as to the way the mind works and just the way people just live life, interact. And so I've always been like, why are we using this strategy specifically? So that may not be your cup of tea. That's fine. I won't go too deep into the psychology of it because, again, I don't want to overwhelm or confuse you. But there are 5 buying triggers that I think is really important for you to at least have awareness of. And then I'll talk a little bit about how you can incorporate that into your offers and your content to move the ball forward and to really bring your audience closer to you. Okay. So like I said, if you're with me, say hello. We're going to jump into this. Katina, hello. How are you? Thank you for coming. All right. So the first when we want to talk about the first factor, which is the most important. And I'm pretty sure all of you have probably heard this in some way, shape, or form that you want to apply to your marketing to make more sales, is the pain versus pleasure, right? We've all kind of heard like speaks to the pain points or, towards the pleasure. So what is this? All human behavior at its root, right, at the root of it all, is driven behind the need to avoid pain and the desire for us to gain pleasure. So even when we do something that appears to be, painful, we're doing it because we associate pleasure with the action, right? We associate like there's something that's going to come out of it. So an example would be exercise. Not many people will say they like to exercise, but they're associating the pleasure of losing weight, looking good, building muscle, whatever the end result is. That's why they're doing it. That's why they're doing that action. Okay. So to use this effectively for you in your marketing, you need to first understand, exactly what your customers associate with pain and pleasure. So do you know this on a deep level? Have you done the market research to understand what does your client, your ideal customers, what do they associate with pain and what do they associate with pleasure, right? So the key point for you to remember in your marketing message and in your content is that in order to influence someone, you need to know what, already influences them. You need to find this out by getting clear on who your audience is and what it is that they are truly looking for. Once you know who they are and what they want, then you use the A/B technique, right? Which is from one point A to point B to talk directly to them in your post. The goal basically is for you to educate your audience and how to move closer to B, how to get away from whatever is their current situation, their current reality that maybe they're not excited about, they don't want to be in anymore, to moving closer to B, because that's what they're going to do to actually just for the sale. So the closer you get them, the more likely they are to buy. So as they're going to start to, associate your business and you with pleasure. So if you can help shift beliefs and tell to them about where they are, their current situation, how you can help them get from that situation back to point B, which is the goal they have that they want to achieve, or just a different life they want to live, they're going to start associating you with that pleasure. And obviously we all desire to move to pleasure. So how are you able to get them that result? Ultimately, our brains are proven to do more to actually avoid pain than to gain pleasure. That's just the way we are naturally wired, okay? So we're always trying to avoid pain and always trying to move closer to something that gives us pleasure. And that's why it's important to talk directly to both parts. We cannot say, oh, I only want to talk to the pleasure, right? Which we hear a lot, right? Let's just do that. We also don't want to just focus on the pain points either, because then we are attracting people who are in constant pain. And sometimes people are just trying to get out of it and they may not show up in the most powerful way in your containers. So there is a nice balance that we want to maintain when we create content, where we're talking about both and we're moving people towards the pleasure, right? The point B, the ultimate goal that they're looking to, an outcome they're looking to achieve. Okay. So we want to make sure we're addressing both the pleasure and pain in our content in order to influence or to, help move them along with their buying decision, right? Because also you have people in your audience who may be more pleasure averse, meaning they're more likely to focus on the pleasure aspect, and people who are more pain averse, right? They're more likely to just get away. And so you have to be able to speak to both aspects and to both parts of your brain. Okay. So you also want to make sure that when you're talking about the pleasure piece, right, we want to address a desire, a want, or aspiration, as well as the pain. So everyone knows how to do the pain, right? You basically talk about the current situation of your ideal clients. So this is not just their current situation in like the very broad sense. This is their current situation. I always say in terms of what are the thoughts that's happening for them? What are the feelings that are resulting as as a result of those thoughts? What are the actions that they're doing or they're not doing as a result of whatever's happening for them? Go deep into that, but then also speak to the aspirations. What do they desire? What do they want? What do they secretly dream about, right? Be able to articulate that. How do they see themselves? Because we see ourselves in a higher light. And when we talk about our aspirational identity, basically what we see for ourselves. So let's say my ideal client is a coach, a woman who is working hard. She's a mom. She's got a business that's going, but it's not where she wants to be exactly, right? She wants to be known as someone who is bringing in clients consistently. She wants to be known as a go-to expert in her field, in her niche. She wants to be making that impact and making good money, right? Income with that. And so maybe she's not there yet. Maybe she's in that like kind of like stretching, growing. Things aren't exactly the way she wants it to be because it's inconsistent for her in terms of the months. She's kind of feeling a bit frustrated about what she's doing because it's not really working. When I talk about her aspirational identity, I want to talk about the fact that she is amazing. I want to talk about the fact that she's driven, she's dedicated, she has a vision, she's doing amazing things in her life, in her world. This is just one area that maybe, she doesn't have it quite yet together. And that's only because she's missing one piece. Some little thing is just off. That's it. A tweak maybe in her message. So you see how I'm still speaking to aspiration of who she wants to be and talking about what she ultimately wants, but I'm also incorporating the pain of not exactly being there, the pain of you're almost there and but something's off because you're not consistently seeing, getting clients. You're not consistently making the sales. You're probably getting all those objections. But I'm also incorporating that piece into it about the pleasure and the aspiration. So let me know if this makes sense. So this is what I mean when I talk about the pain and pleasure. And in the mastermind, we go a little deeper into this too, and then we incorporate it, right? Because the understanding the theory behind it is great. I think, like I said, it's important, but how do you actually put it into practice is also the most important piece of it when you are creating content and offers. Just check it out again. Let me know if this makes sense or if you have any questions around that. Awesome. I know it's a little bit delayed, so I will give it a second and then we'll move into the second factor. So the first factor, like I said, is pain versus pleasure. Really understanding what that is for your ideal clients, understanding that we all operate from that place. And so how are you incorporating that into both your offers and into your content when you're creating that so that you are addressing all aspects of it? Okay. All right. The second piece, the second factor, really big, and especially now, again, because this is a great way to help your audience distinguish you from everyone else, and it's very unique to you, is storytelling. And I know you've all heard this before, but it is incredibly powerful. By telling a story, right, you trigger emotions, right, human emotions. And we by nature are emotional creatures, right? Whether you want to believe it or not, we are. Even if you're more analytical, maybe in some parts, we are emotional creatures, and our buying decisions are actually based on emotions. Okay. Telling stories activates that pathway associated with our sight, sound, taste, movement, the whole thing. Because stories light up our emotional brains, which is where we make the decision whether to buy or not. That's why storytelling is so important, and you want to make sure you're incorporating this into your content for sure. When we're using stories in our content and you're touching on, the different sides of our brain, we're evoking that emotional connection. Is going to be really powerful than just going straight to the offer, right? If you're trying to, make an offer, just going straight to the offer, sometimes there's no connection. There's not an emotional buy-in yet from your audience when you don't put in some story that resonates, that kind of helps them see and puts them into that emotional state. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're kind of doing a little bit of both, right? You're balancing the storytelling with your offer, okay? So that you have the emotional piece and then you have the tangible offer outcome, right? That people want as well, because they want to also understand the logical brain and wants to understand how exactly is this going to help me, okay? So an example would be, let's say you're a parenting coach, right? And you're struggling to see how your outcome will be tangible for parents, right? So you're like, oh, I can tell the story about being a parent and stuff like that. You want to focus on aspects of parenting that is valuable to them, right? So for them, it could be, no more constant arguing with their kids, maybe getting better sleep at night and their kids getting better sleep because they're not sleeping well. The tangible outcome can be communicated as getting more rest, being able to, now that you and your kids aren't always arguing and fighting, be able to have better communication means you can be more effective at work or in your business, especially if you're a mompreneur, right? That's a distraction. If you are constantly in, conflict with your kids and things like that, and it's always up and down. So those are things that you can actually speak to in a tangible way. You can tell a story around it, but then incorporate the tangible outcomes that come as a result of it, because it's going to look at the financial piece of it, right? If things are going haywire in your life, especially in your family life, it's going to reflect in your business. And so we tell a story that kind of, again, brings in that emotional piece. And then we give them a tangible outcome at the end, and how our offer kind of helps resolve that, basically. Okay. So stories can help build anticipation as well. And anticipation is a key stage, and happiness is having something to look forward to, right? Like anticipation is like, ooh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen, right? And it brings out that anticipation in us. Okay. But remember that stories alone will not increase your conversion rate. So sometimes I see people just go in with the stories, and stories are nice, right? It's a great way to get to know someone. But if you are not incorporating these 5 factors, if you're not leading back to how your offer is the solution, you miss people, because then you're just a storyteller. That's great, but there's a structure to it, right? That needs to be incorporated. So I hope that makes sense. So that's number 2, is storytelling. Okay. So the last one is, and if you're on hashtag replay, say your hashtag replay. I'll be sharing the last 2 tomorrow. So this is a 2-part. Like I said, I want to keep these short and sweet. The last factor is simple. So we all know that just our natural human nature, again, is we want to use the path of least resistance. So simplifying your solution means you want to apply the general law of least effort to all of your solutions, right? The law of least effort asserts that if there are several ways to achieve the same goal, people will gravitate to the least demanding course of action. That is our natural human in bias, right? Is we want the easiest route to get to the solution. So think about the diet pills. Why do you think they're so big and prevalent in the fitness health industry? Because a lot of people don't want to go through the hard work of, like, right, eating better or working out. They just want a magic pill that's going to help them lose the weight. It's very rare that ever works, but they're a multi-industry. Diet pills are still big because people want the least amount of effort to achieve their goals. Our brain work because it's least energy assertion. But this way, our habits come as a result of our brains wanting to, not use. If you've ever driven somewhere and it's somewhere you've gone, and you just like, you get there and you're like, how did I time when you're like, wait, how did I get here? I drove all the way here and I don't remember. It's because automatic. Your brain's like, we've done this already. We don't need to assert energy to act fully present as to go left, go right. It already knows. So it's an automatic. You're doing autopilot. Same thing with brushing your teeth. Maybe you do it, this habit. We don't really assert as much energy anymore. It's the same for all of us. Natural human want it to be as quick and as short. How are you saving me energy? How are you making me more money, etc. To this, right, in simplifying your solution, we want to use words like step by step, fast, system, framework. These are key words that our brains just pick up on. And you want to use that in your copy because it's letting your prospects know that your solution is the simplest one available, which will make them more likely to buy from you, right? It is the way it works. I've seen it time and time again. If you put 2 offers in front of someone, the one that has the least amount of steps and the clearest, right? You have to be clear. That's important. Clear and the simplest steps, people are going to go for it because they can see it. It's easy. They're like, okay, this is the path of least resistance. It's the path to get me quickly to my results, whatever that may be. Now, if let's say whatever you do, mindset, etc., takes more time, even the way you package it still needs to be simplified, right? You don't want to we go this, we do that. If it's overly complex and complicated, people, again, tune out because their brain goes, oh no, that's too much work. That is too much work. That's too much energy that I cannot afford to assert on this. And so we want to make sure that we in our content and even when we create and present our offers, we show them the quickest way to get to that result, right? And we simplify our solution. Okay, so that's the third factor that we want to incorporate and think about. So just to recap, we talked about the first factor, which is pain versus pleasure, understanding what that is for your ideal audience in terms of where do they most sit, but making sure we incorporate both aspects into our content and into our offer. Storytelling, it evokes the emotion in our clients, in our audience. It evokes the emotion, which means that it also is the place where they're making their buying decisions within our audience. So make sure you're using storytelling. And then last piece is simplify your solution. Keep it simple or complicated. Do not add more steps than is necessary, so as not to confuse, overwhelm your people. So tomorrow we'll talk about the last two, because again, this is a lot. And I want to make sure that, again, you also don't get overwhelmed. And I want to keep these trainings really simple and also really short. And so just some things to think about. Tomorrow we'll go over the last two, and then I'll give you some like real tangible examples so that you can also take this and incorporate it into your own offers and into your own content. So if you have any questions, let me know. Let me take this off real quick and see. Let me jump in here. If you have any questions, thanks. Oh, thank you. I can't see your name, so I apologize if you're copied and you said hello. All right. So yeah, so if you have any questions, let me know. And like I said, tomorrow we'll talk about the last two. So you want to jump in tomorrow because they're going to be really good, and as well as some examples and tangible things you can use. And I'll be doing some more mini trainings all of next week and the following week up until Thanksgiving. So if that's something you want to know or be notified of, do not hesitate to reach out to me and let me know, and I'll tag you in it as well. So again, I will see you all tomorrow as we go into part 2 of this 5 psychological triggers to get more sales. All right. If you are on hashtag replay, ask your questions below and I'll come back and respond to them. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your Thursday. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care.